In today's video, we're lettering and weathering a truck. Why? Because they make it like that. If you're new here, my name is Tim, and I love all things model trains. I specialize mostly in weathering and graffiti, but I just love every aspect of model railroading. My main focus is to try and make the models look as real as possible. And this truck is too bright and shiny and a little undecorated. It doesn't have any lettering, nothing on it. There's just no detail whatsoever, and my task at hand today is to try and make it look as real as possible. Now, if you saw in my last video, I have an N-scale layout. You can actually see it over my shoulder now because I've raised it 10 inches to be at the height where I want my future expansion to be. And I'm just gearing up so that I can actually start building and take you along the journey of the build series. If that's something that interests you, feel free to subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so that you're notified every single time I post a new video. I'm really excited about this build and I can't wait to bring you along with me. But this truck is HO scale. You'll find on this channel I like to model both scales. I have an N scale layout. However, I love HO scale and I love to model it as well. A lot of times what I do is I weather and graffiti HO scale and I sell it. At least I used to when there were train shows. If you saw in a previous video, I will link it right up in the top corner here. I made a revolving diorama in HO scale that represents the same scene in 2 different decades. It's a work in progress like any model railroad would be, but this is meant to be my show display. I take it with me to shows when there are shows, and I can showcase the weathering and graffiti work that I do, as well as some of the scenery work and the trees and rock work and things like that. This is a truck that I bought for that diorama, but I haven't put it on the diorama yet just because it's not weathered. That's what I do. So I can't put it on the diorama until it's completed. So if you know me, you'll know that I love to put inside jokes and homages to certain people on my layout. It's just something that I love to do. I did that when I weathered and detailed the building from Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. I named that building CETA Logistics after my nephew, who always wanted to CETA trains. I was trying to find a pun that I could put on this truck, and I couldn't think of anything. When I was looking up pictures, I saw a picture of the Ryder rental company, and that made me chuckle because my son is obsessed with Paw Patrol, and the main character from Paw Patrol is named Ryder. Now, I don't know if any of you have young kids and would know that, but I just thought it was a fun little jab at something that my son loves. I got into Photoshop and I replicated the side and the front logos of a Ryder rental truck. I printed it out on this paper here, and I printed lots of copies just in case I made any mistakes, but I also tried something new, and I want to experiment today to see if it's something that can actually be done. I saw someone take a regular sheet of printer paper, blank white printer paper, and rub vegetable oil all over it and hang it up to dry. And they did that to make tracing paper for artwork. Now I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could run that through my printer? I tried it. Because it was oiled up, it was actually difficult for the rollers of my printer to take it through. So I ended up having to tape it to a piece of paper and get it to come through. But I ended up with this, and obviously it looks dark because it's on a black table, but if I put the other one underneath, you can actually see just how transparent it is. So I am going to attempt to cut that out and glue it to the side of the truck. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm gonna try it out. Now, because the back is a bifold door, I'm not gonna bother putting a logo on the back just because I don't have decal paper right now to be able to make a decal to go on the back. As well as I didn't do anything for the doors just yet because, again, I'd rather do that with a decal than with the paper. This box has recesses, so it's a lot easier to put the paper in and have it blend in nicely, whereas with the door, it would stand out. So there is the front of the box. So that's just gonna slip right in there behind the cab like that. And we have our 2 sides. Now I just need to trace out the wheel wells and we're good to go. Look at that, perfect fit. Alright, so according to the reference photo that I found, the top of the box and side corners are silver. So the good news is, I found a marker that's going to work perfectly. This is just a dollar store metallic permanent marker made by Studio. The cheapest silver marker you could possibly find, but they work amazing. I use them all the time for graffiti, and it's going to work great to give me that metallic look that I'm going for on this truck. The bad news is, I just realized while I was hunting around that I still have a piece of plywood leaning against my wall. Did you notice that from before? Or am I just pointing it out to you now because my head is kind of in the way? If you noticed it, just comment down below. I've been trying to put together my building supplies for this expansion, and I guess I overlooked that piece of plywood because there's not normally a piece of plywood leaning against that wall. This whole layout's a work in progress. You gotta expect a little bit of chaos. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to detail this truck with this marker and clear coat it, because plastic and marker doesn't necessarily go hand in hand all the time. Now I must say, even before doing the dull coat, this looks so much better than it did. It just makes the whole box stand out. I've done the latches on the back for the swing open doors. I couldn't be happier with the result. I know that I just kind of whipped it up on Photoshop and I didn't really show you any of that. If anybody is ever interested in how I make custom signs for railroads in Photoshop, feel free to leave a comment down below. There's a lot of different aspects to the hobby, and I know that some people are computer savvy, some people are not. If it's something that interests you, just let me know. I'm gonna do the front first. That on through. Alright, so that's the front, and now I'm gonna go ahead and do the sides. I'm just gonna put a couple drops of glue in the corners and one over the wheel well, and then I'm just gonna use a Q-tip to smooth it out so I don't get fingerprints. I'm honestly impressed at how well the ink from my printer is holding to the oil on the page. I mean, it was dry when I put it through, but it still has that a bit of a slippery texture to it. I was worried that the ink was just gonna rub right off and I would have wasted my time. Here you have it. You've got yourself a truck with the front and the two sides lettered, just like that. So here's a handy trick for you. I actually just cut off a small piece of this olive oil or vegetable oil tracing paper. So you take your piece of tracing paper and you put it over top of the windshield like this. It doesn't have to be exact, just enough so that you get the outline. So you're gonna go ahead and get yourself a piece of Scotch tape and place that over top of your traced out windshield. The nice part about the tracing paper is it doesn't stick very well to tape. So I'm gonna look at my reference photo of the wiper blades on this truck. So then you're gonna go ahead and peel that right off. You're gonna wanna cut the streak part out that you drew, not the frame of the windshield. We got the tape on there. So now what that's gonna do is that's gonna create a mask. So you can weather and dull coat this and then peel it off and you have some wiper streaks. So now for weathering, there's not a ton of weathering that needs to be done unless you really want this thing to look dumpy. I personally have never seen a Ryder truck look dumpy. Mind you, this is my layout we're talking about, so I tend to go a little overboard with the weathering sometimes, but I'm gonna keep it subtle. It's mostly just gonna be some dirt and a little bit of rust. I'm gonna put a little bit of rust on these latches at the back. For that, I'm gonna use my trusty eyeliner, but because this is a little bit more intricate than doing rust streaks on a boxcar, I'm actually gonna take a brush. Now this brush here, I've gone ahead and I've trimmed the bristles right down so there's barely anything here. It'll still give me that brush texture that I'm looking for. So I'm just gonna rub my brush on the end of the eyeliner pencil under these hinges, and then streak down under these latches, and then a little bit over this entire bar here. A lot of times the back door of trucks is the filthiest of the whole truck. If you've got a truck running down the highway on a rainy day, all of that dirt is getting sucked to the back of the truck because of science. I'm just gonna use AIM weathering powder. This is grimy black, and I bought a set of these in all various colors 8 years ago, and I still have like 3/4 of each of these left. So I'm just gonna apply it with a Q-tip, and I'm just gonna take the back and just lay it on nice and heavy and wipe it off in a downward motion because of gravity. Now alternatively for this, you can use a black wash like you've seen me do in other videos, but this effect works too. So now you've got the back of the truck looking super gross. The top of the truck doesn't really get too dirty, so I'm just gonna clean that up with the white eraser, and I'm just gonna use what's left on my Q-tip with the weathering powder. Just kind of rub that on the side there. Now again, like I said, this is all an experiment. I've never weathered paper soaked in vegetable oil before, so I honestly have no idea how this is all gonna take. I'm not gonna do too much to it after that. I'm just gonna do the same on the other side of the truck. Now, one thing I am gonna do is I'm actually, and don't cringe please, I'm actually gonna take this and bend it just a little bit. Sometimes, you know, you're backing up a truck into a loading dock and you don't see that dumpster. So I'm just gonna hit the back bumper with the silver Sharpie, and then I'm gonna go over that again with the rust. All right, so I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I weathered it a little bit more on one side than on the other just to give it a little bit of a variation. A lot of times on layouts, you're only gonna see one side of it at a time anyway. So it's kind of nice to give yourself some variation, because depending on where you put it, you could have two different trucks. But again, I'm happy with it. The paper method worked out fantastic. I was not sure how it was gonna work out, but let me just go ahead and dull coat this. We'll peel off our wiper streaks, and Bob's your uncle. We got ourselves some wiper streaks. So that is it. I can't believe that I took a piece of paper and soaked it in vegetable oil, hung it to dry, taped it to a piece of paper, ran it through my printer, and stuck it on this truck and weathered it. I'm definitely going to be using this technique more for signage on buildings and other transport trucks and whatever else I can come up with in the future. Having tracing paper like that so easily is great. I mean, obviously you can buy tracing paper, but sometimes you don't have that option when you're in lockdown and pretty much everything under the sun is not considered essential. I'm talking to you, Doug Ford. So when you go ahead and you compare the two scenes, that's the whole purpose of this diorama, was to compare the two eras of the exact same scene. In the older era, obviously there's no graffiti and it's weathered slightly because it's reality and everything is weathered even if it's brand new. But in the newer era, you got more graffiti, you've got a little bit more run down, and obviously the truck is different. But I couldn't just plop a brand new truck out of the box, no weathering, no detail, and then take it to shows. So if you learned something from this video, give it a thumbs up, because that really makes a difference and it really helps me out so that I can make more of these videos for you. And if you'd like more content like this, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you're notified every single time I post a video. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. We'll see you in the next one.